You know that the universal feeling of dread, right?
Mhm.
You're sitting in the doctor's office, you hop up on that crinkly paper that always sticks to your legs,
Oh, yeah.
and the phlebotomist ties that rubber tourniquet, like way too tight around your arm. You look away, you feel the pinch, and you just watch them fill up maybe 3 or 4 of those little glass vials.
It's a ritual we all go through, the standard blood draw. It's invasive, it's uncomfortable, and for most of us, it's a total black box.
Exactly. That's the story usually ends for us, for the patient. We go home, and a few days later, we get a notification, on a portal with a bunch of numbers we don't understand.
You see within normal limits, and you just move on.
Right. But today, we're doing something different. We're going to follow those vials into the lab.
We're doing a deep dive into clinical chemistry.
And to do this, we are not using a boring textbook. We are working from this stack of high-yield clinical review notes. These are basically the cheat sheets that medical residents use to cram for their board exams.
I love these. They're messy, they're covered in hand-drawn cartoons, mnemonics, all these big test alert stamps.
Yeah.
And I love sources like this because they just cut through the academic fluff. They focus entirely on the decision points. How do doctors look at a soup of chemicals and figure out if you're healthy or if there's a crisis brewing?
Right. So our mission today is to decode the medical dashboard of the human body. We're going to learn how to read the gauges for your engine, your metabolism, your liver, your heart, using the same memory tricks the pros use.
And it all starts with the hardware, the tubes themselves.
The tubes, most people just see glass vials, but the color of that plastic cap is actually a chemical code.
It is.
I've noticed that. Sometimes they grab a red one, sometimes a gray one, a purple one. The notes here make a huge distinction between the red top and the gray top.
And it's not just color coordination, it dictates what fluid we're actually testing. And this gets us to the first big distinction in the notes. Serum versus plasma.
Okay, I feel like people use those words interchangeably, like blood plasma, blood serum. Is there actually a difference, or is that just semantics?
Oh, there is a huge difference chemically, and it all comes down to clotting.
Clotting.
Imagine you draw blood into a red top tube. There's nothing in there to stop it from clotting, so you let it sit on the counter. The cells, they get trapped in a big clot at the bottom. The liquid that's left over, the fluid you can pour off the top, that is serum.
So serum is liquid, minus the clotting factors, because they've all been used up making the clot.
Precisely. Serum is post-clot fluid. Now you compare that to plasma. To get plasma, you have to prevent the clot from ever happening.
Okay.
You use a tube with an anticoagulant in it, chemicals like heparin or citrate. You spin it down in a centrifuge, the cells sink, and the liquid on top still has all those clotting proteins just floating around in it.
Okay, so red top equals serum, and that's used for most chemistry tests. But the notes here warn about a specific disaster scenario. There's this huge cartoon of a red blood cell literally exploding.
Ah, yes, the hemolysis hazard.
Right.
This is the bane of every lab technician's existence.
The drawing shows a cell bursting and just liquid pouring out. And the mnemonic next to it is KLMP, K-L-A-M-P. Help KLM the leak.
This is brilliant because it tells you exactly why a bad blood draw ruins the test. If the phlebotomist shakes the tube too hard or uses a needle that's too small, the red blood cells shear.
They pop.
They pop. That's hemolysis. And when they pop, they dump their insides into the serum.
And that's what KLMP stands for.
Yeah.
The stuff that spills out.
Exactly. Let's start with K. K is the chemical symbol for potassium.
Which is a huge deal on a lab report, right?
Massive. And here is the why behind it.
Yeah.
Potassium is the primary intracellular cation. That means it is supposed to live inside your cells.
Right.
Its concentration inside the cell is vastly higher than outside. So if you pop even a few of those cells in the tube, the potassium spills out into the serum like a broken dam. And suddenly, the machine reads a dangerously high potassium level.
But the patient is totally fine.
The patient is walking around totally normal. It's what we call a pseudo-hyperkalemia. The patient is fine, but the sample is just ruined.
And that explains the rest of the mnemonic, too.
Yeah.
L is for LD-lactate dehydrogenase. A is aldolase. M is magnesium. P is phosphate. These are all things that live inside the cell.
Right. So if a doctor sees a report where potassium, magnesium, and phosphate are all weirdly high at the same time, they shouldn't panic.
They shouldn't send the patient to the ER.
Exactly. They should look at the sample and say, wait a minute, did we just burst some cells?
It's a quality control check.
Hmm.
Okay, so moving from the red top to the gray top. The notes say this tube has sodium fluoride, and the instruction is prevents glycolysis.
This is fascinating because it reminds us that blood is alive, Even after you pull it out of the arm, those red blood cells are still living metabolic entities. And what do living things do?
How they eat.
They eat. They eat sugar. They eat glucose. If you draw blood into a regular tube and let it sit on the counter for 2 hours while you, go to lunch, the red blood cells will consume the glucose in the vial. By the time you test it, the result is going to be falsely low.
So you might tell a diabetic they're fine when they're actually not, just because the cells had a snack in the tube?
Exactly. That's why we use the gray top. The sodium fluoride, it acts like a preservative. It poisons that glycolysis process. It freezes the sugar level exactly where it was the moment it left the body.
It's like putting a lid on the cookie jar so the kids can't get in.
That is a perfect analogy.
Speaking of cookies, let's get into the engine of the body. Energy. The notes call this section the glucose war.
I love this framing because it really is a war for control of your blood sugar.
And looking at the diagram here, it seems incredibly lopsided. On one side, fighting to lower blood sugar, you have exactly one soldier, insulin.
Just one. Insulin is the only hormone in the human body that effectively lowers serum glucose. Its job is to open the doors of the cells and just usher the sugar inside to be used or stored.
But on the other side, the team fighting to raise blood sugar, it's an army. The notes have this massive mnemonic gag shit.
Gag shit. It sounds ridiculous, but it lists all the heavy hitters that oppose insulin.
Okay, let's break it down. Let's see who's on this team. G for glucagon. A for ACTH. Another G for growth hormone.
Then you have C for cortisol. That's the stress hormone.
H is human placental lactogen. E is epinephrine adrenaline. And T is thyroid hormone.
So think about the evolutionary logic here. Why is the system designed this way? Why do we have 7 hormones to raise sugar and only 1 to lower it?
I'm guessing because historically for early humans, starving to death was a much bigger risk than having too much sugar.
Bingo. We are evolved for scarcity. If you are starving or you're being chased by a tiger or fighting an infection, you need instant energy. You need sugar in the blood now.
So the body has 7 different backup systems.
7 backups: adrenaline, cortisol, glucagon, to dump sugar into the bloodstream to keep you alive during a crisis.
But we only have one way insulin to bring it down.
Because for millions of years, too much food just wasn't a problem we had to solve. And that's why diabetes is such a crisis today. We're flooding a system with abundance when it was designed to survive a famine. We're hacking our own hardware.
That is a very sobering thought. Now, how do we actually diagnose when this system fails? The notes mention Fido the diabetic dog.
Yes, the classic cartoon. You find this in almost every med student's notes.
Poor Fido.
Yeah.
He looks terrible. The drawing highlights the classic symptoms of diabetes. He's drinking from the huge water bowl, and there's a fire hydrant next to him.
And that represents polydipsia and polyuria, excessive thirst and excessive urination.
Why does that happen? I know people associate peeing a lot with diabetes, but what's the actual mechanism?
It's a plumbing issue, really. It involves osmosis. When your blood sugar gets too high above a certain threshold, the kidneys just can't filter it all. The sugar spills over into the urine.
That
And sugar acts like a sponge. It pulls water with it. So you pee out massive amounts of water, which dehydrates you, which then makes you incredibly thirsty.
And Fido is also really skinny. The note highlights weight loss.
Which seems counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
You have high sugar, plenty of fuel floating in your blood. But remember, without insulin, the cells can't access that fuel. The doors are locked.
So the cells are starving.
They are literally starving in the midst of plenty. The body starts burning its own fat and muscle just to survive.
That's vivid. So to track this, we have the famous HbA1c test. I think most people know this is the 3-month average test.
Right. It's the gold standard for long-term control.
But the notes explain why it's 3 months, and it's tied to the life cycle of the red blood cell.
Exactly. Glucose is sticky. It naturally sticks to proteins in a process we call glycosylation. Hemoglobin is the protein inside your red blood cells. Once glucose sticks to it, it stays there until that cell dies. And since a red blood cell lives about 120 days,
The A1C is like a history book for that cell's life. It tells you how much sugar that cell bumped into over the last 4 months.
correct. But here is a cool detail the notes add. What if you need a shorter window? What if you changed your medication 2 weeks ago and you want to know if it's working?
The A1C wouldn't show that yet because all the old cells are still floating around.
Exactly. For that, the notes suggest fructosamine.
I have never heard of that one.
It's less common, but very useful. Fructosamine measures glucose attached to albumin, not hemoglobin. And albumin is a protein that floats in the blood, but it recycles much faster every 2 to 3 weeks.
So fructosamine is the snapshot. A1C is the feature film.
Perfect way to put it.
Let's switch fuels. from sugar to fat. The lipids section. I think this is where the most confusion lies for the average person. We hear cholesterol and we just panic. But the cheat sheet makes a really hard distinction between cholesterol and triglycerides.
They're totally different building blocks, different jobs. Triglycerides are fuel. That's energy storage. If you eat a cheeseburger, the calories you don't use immediately get turned into triglycerides and stored in your fat cells.
In cholesterol?
Cholesterol is structural. It's like a brick. You use it to build cell walls, to make hormones like testosterone and estrogen, to make vitamin D. You literally cannot live without cholesterol.
So the problem isn't the substance itself, it's the delivery trucks.
Right. Oil and water don't mix. Blood is water-based, so you can't just have globs of fat floating around. They have to be packed inside a vehicle called a lipoprotein.
And we have a whole fleet of different trucks here. Chylomicrons, VLDL, LDL, HDL.
Think of chylomicrons as the heavy delivery trucks coming from your gut, carrying the fat from the burger you just ate. VLDL carries the fat your liver made. But the ones we really care about for heart health are LDL and HDL.
The notes have the classic mnemonics here. LDL is lethal.
It's branded as the bad cholesterol. LDL's job is to drive cholesterol out to the body's cells. If you have too many of those trucks, they start parking on the side of the highway, they crash into the artery walls and dump their load, and that's plaque.
And HDL is helpful.
Hooray alpha is the silly phrase in the notes. HDL is the garbage truck. It picks up excess cholesterol from the tissues and drives it back to the liver to be destroyed. That's why you want that number to be high. It means you have a good cleanup crew.
Now, there's a weird little math equation in here called the Friedwald method. It says LDL equals total cholesterol minus HDL minus triglycerides divided by 5.
Yes. This blows people's minds. Believe it or not, most standard labs don't actually measure your LDL directly. It's expensive, it's slow. So they measure the other three, and they use this formula to estimate the LDL.
That's wild. So my LDL number is just a calculated guess.
Usually, yes. And notice the warning stamp there. Cannot use if triglycerides are 400.
Why 400?
Because the formula assumes a specific ratio of fat to cholesterol in those lipoprotein trucks. If your triglycerides are super high over 400, that divide by 5 part of the equation just breaks down, the math fails. At that point, the lab has to actually get the expensive kit out and measure it directly.
Good to know. If your triglycerides are off the charts, check your LDL math. Okay, let's move to proteins. The notes depict this process, electrophoresis, as a literal foot race.
It is a race. In the lab, we put a drop of serum on this gel slab and we turn on the electricity. Proteins have an electrical charge, so they start moving towards the positive side, the anode.
And the winner of the race is albumin.
Albumin is attracted to anti-anode. Albumin is small and highly negative, so it just sprints to the finish line. It creates the biggest, fastest band on the gel.
And who's the slowpoke?
The gamma globulins, they barely leave the starting blocks.
So when a doctor looks at this race, what are they checking for?
They're looking for patterns. Albumin is your main transport protein, but it also has this crucial job, keeping water inside your blood vessels. This is called osmotic pressure.
Okay.
If albumin is low, water leaks out into your tissues. That's why patients with liver failure or malnutrition get all puffy and swollen. They don't have enough albumin to hold the water in the veins.
And the slow runners, the gamma globulins.
Those are your antibodies. If you see a huge dark band right at the starting line, it means your body is pumping out antibodies like crazy. It signals chronic inflammation, infection, or sometimes cancers like multiple myeloma where the antibody factories go rogue.
Wow. There are some very specific, very strange diseases listed here too. Maple syrup urine disease? I honestly thought that was a joke.
It sounds like one, but it's a serious genetic disorder. The body can't break down certain amino acids, specifically the branched chain ones. They build up in the system, and literally the baby's urine smells sweet, like burnt sugar or maple syrup.
And PKU, phenylketonuria.
That's an inability to process the amino acid phenylalanine.
Yeah.
If you don't catch it early, it causes severe brain damage. The diagnostic clue in the notes is a musty or mousy odor.
It's amazing how much of early medicine was just smelling things.
The nose knows. Before we had mass spectrometry, we had the physician's senses.
All right, last section, the enzyme alarm system. We have CKLD, AST, ALT. The notes say enzymes belong inside.
That is the golden rule of enzymology. Enzymes are the workers inside the factory of the cell. They're supposed to be busy building things or breaking things down inside the cell walls.
So if you find the workers floating in the river outside the factory,
You know the factory wall has blown open.
so high enzymes in the blood equals cellular damage.
Exactly. And different cells hold different enzymes. So by seeing which worker is fighting in the blood, we know which organ is damaged.
Okay, let's play detective. I find CKMB and LD in the blood. Where's the damage?
That points to the heart. CK is in muscle, but CKMB is specific to heart muscle, and the LD. There's a classic sign called the LD flip.
What is the flip?
Normally, you have more LD2 than LD1 in your blood, but the heart muscle is packed with LD1. So when a heart attack happens and those cells die, all that LD1 spills out. Suddenly, LD1 is higher than LD2. The ratio flips. It's an old school sign of a heart attack.
Okay, next case. I find AST and ALT.
The liver, those are the classic liver enzymes. But the notes highlight that ALT is the liver-specific one. AST is a bit promiscuous. It hangs out in the heart and skeletal muscles too. But if the ALT is high, your liver is definitely unhappy.
And then there's GGT. The handwritten note here is hilarious. It says, gotta get tequila.
It works. GGT is an enzyme that is incredibly sensitive to alcohol intake. If someone has been drinking heavily, GGT just shoots up. It's also a marker for bile duct obstructions, but that tequila mnemonic ensures you never forget the liver connection.
One more. Amylase and lipase.
Pancreas. This is usually acute pancreatitis. Amylase goes up, but lipase is the better test. It's more specific to the pancreas, and it stays elevated for longer.
Okay, finally the bone. This one confused me. ALP alkaline phosphatase. It says it indicates bone disorders, but then there's this big warning. Naturally high in growing children.
This is why you can't just be a robot reading numbers. ALP is made by osteoblasts, the cells that build bone. If a 70-year-old man has high ALP, he might have bone cancer or Paget's disease.
But a 12-year-old.
He's just growing. His bones are lengthening. Rapid skeletal growth releases massive amounts of ALP. It's totally normal. You have to treat the patient, not the paper.
It really is a dashboard, but
Yeah.
you have to know how to interpret all the warning lights.
Exactly. A high number isn't always a disease, and a normal number isn't always health. It's all about the context.
There is a handwritten note at the very bottom of the final page that I think sums this all up beautifully. It says, respiratory is a seesaw, metabolic is a swing.
That's a deep cut. That's regarding acid-base balance, which is a whole other topic. But the philosophy of it holds true for everything we discussed today.
How so?
Well, the body isn't static. It's constantly correcting. It pushes sugar up. Insulin pulls it down. It builds bone. It breaks down bone. Homeostasis isn't standing still. It's a constant, active balancing act.
And these vials of blood, they're just a snapshot of that swing in motion.
Correct. We are freezing a dynamic movie into a single frame to try and understand the plot.
Well, I will never look at a lab report the same way again. I'm going to be looking for Abby Albumin winning her race.
And making sure Fido isn't too thirsty.
Exactly. Thank you for taking us through these cheat sheets.
My pleasure.
And for you listening, go hydrate, keep that blood flowing, and we'll see you on the next deep dive.